Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we talk about some sort of piece of nerd entertainment that recently dropped and is watchable by all of you out there, and spoil the heck out of it while we look at the story, the plot, the meaning, the theme, the tone, etc. It's brought to you by us, the folks at Nerd Caliber. And tonight we actually have the can we call us the Brain Trust? Um, anyway, the top dogs, whatever. Of Nerd Caliber, I'm Rodney Braun. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber, first person shooter on Facebook, and Burley underscore adopter on Twitter. And joining me is the man who founded this whole shindig and brought me on. Manny, if you would.
Hello, my name is Manny. I'm the founder of Nerd Caliber, and I'm very excited to talk about today's topic.
And today's topic is the Netflix movie Outside the Wire. Just became available to watch this last week, I believe. Um, Anthony Mackie from the MCU, of course, playing the Falcon, and a bunch of other things. The second season of Altered Carbon is in this. A actor whose name I'm going to ruin because I just realized I didn't.
Oh, Damson.
Damson Idris. Now remember the Idris from Idris Elba, no relation, by the way, but is also apparently the main actor in Snowfall, the FX series about the rise of the cocaine empire. Um, Before we get into talking about the show itself or the movie itself, I want to welcome everybody who's already joined in on the chats and give you fair warning, as we always do. So, B Crews, welcome to the show. Skip Online Class people who hate it, we're going to call you Skip. Skip, welcome to the show. Alan Noah, welcome to the show. And doing a quick bounce around to the other things that where we're streaming. Don't see anybody on there. All right. So, Outside the Wire is a completely original intellectual property made as a movie. It was written by, get these names right here, Rob Yescom and Rowan Athale, or Athali, something like that. Um, Directed by the Swedish director Mikael Hevström, or the O umlaut, Hevström. Anyway, Mikael Hafström, and whose the only, other than a bunch of Swedish movies you've probably never heard of, his only other work is that you might have heard of, is the Sylvester Stallone Schwarzenegger movie Escape Plan. He directed
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um, the story was written by Yescom, Rob Yescom, as well as giving one of the two credits as a screenplay writer. And he has written almost nothing but video games. He wrote Crisis 2, Crisis 3, Rambo the video game, The Division, Farpoint. He's a video game writer. He's
Interesting.
written a couple of short films, but that's it. And that, to me, that makes a lot of sense, and we'll get into that later on. The story is our main character is really Lieutenant Harp. He's a drone pilot. He takes matters into his own hands in a particular drone strike against the orders that he was given. Let me move this over here. That is Harp on the left in the yellow shirt, and Anthony Mackie, of course, on the right. His punishment for doing this is he is sent to the U.S. military base in Ukraine at a point in which there's a conflict in which the United States is trying to stop Ukrainian insurgents who are pro-Russian from taking over the rest of Ukraine. Um, at this base, he encounters. This is set in the what they call the near future. No actual date given in the movie, but in the Wikipedia entry, it said this is 2036. So I'm not sure where they got that, but nobody has flagged it as an error in the Wikipedia entry. So um, he discovers that the base, well, he doesn't discover, we discover, because he would have known it all along, being a military man, that the base also utilizes robotic soldiers called Gumps, which I think is actually kind of hilarious, but are clearly based on the Boston Dynamics Atlas humanoid robot design. And in fact, we see um, versions of Spot or Big Dog in the camp itself that are therefore, one would assume, reconnaissance or gear hauling or something. Um, he is assigned to Captain Leo, who is Anthony Mackie's character, and I'm sure you've seen from, if you've seen any of the androids, or any of the androids, any of the trailers or anything, he is an android. And once again, we are spoiling this show, folks. So if you haven't seen it, probably want to go somewhere else. But that's kind of what he looks like when his skin camouflage, I guess. He turns it off deliberately to try to make it clear, that he's not going to freak out, or that Harp shouldn't freak out. Harp's very first mission with Leo is to ostensibly go deliver some vaccines to a clinic inside the demilitarized zone between these pro-Russian insurgents and the rest of Ukraine. And we discover that his actual role is special operations, and he's there to try to stop a particularly crazy member of, well, actually, he's not even a member of the insurgents. This guy is trying to get nuclear codes so he can have control of the Russian nuclear weapons that were left in Ukraine. And we go from there. We'll get into other more spoilery elements as we go along talking about it. So that's the basic gist of the story. Again, called a near future science fiction tale that involves robots in combat, and in this one case, the super advanced android in combat. What we would do now, or what we usually do now in the show, and what we're about to do, is we're going to talk about what we liked and what we didn't like about the show. So first off, Manny, before we get into that, is there anything that would give anybody who's watching an idea of what the show is about, assuming they don't care about spoilers, that I might have missed? And if not, why don't we then jump right into what did you like about it, what worked for you, what didn't you like, and so on.
Well, it's hard not to talk about it at this point without talk about the twist at the end, if you want to call it a twist.
It's full fat spoiler chat. Let's jump right into that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you find out that Leo is actually, he is trying to recover the codes, but he's trying to set off the bombs for a couple of reasons. One, he's been programmed to try to find the outcome to this war. But his programming is actually really good. That he sees that, all right, the only way this can really stop if that America is wiped out, or at least crippled in some way, so that they can't do these drone strikes anymore. Also, he sort of mentions that making by him being the bad guy and having the American government know that he's the bad guy, it'll stop making more robots or androids like Leo. So that was interesting. So then you see Harp going after Leo, trying to stop him, and then it ends with him stopping Leo and then walking away with a picture of his girlfriend, like, oh, I'm gonna look pretty much assuming like he's gonna get back home and get back to his fiance. Actually, I should say. Did I like this? I did. I did like it. But I remember feeling drawn off by the ending because it wasn't a very. I felt like it wasn't a happy ending, and I couldn't figure out why I felt that way. I was like, all right, he stopped the bad robot from destroying America. Why do I not feel good about this ending? And I was thinking about it, and I realized, okay, this is not a typical movie, like where the story is. It's not very story driven in that way. It's actually a Black Mirror episode or a Twilight Zone episode. It should have ended with Rod Serling at the end and say something like about the the discussions that Captain Leo, the android, brought out, because he had some good points, and the only thing he had to counter it, Howard had to counter it, is like, well, we can try to do better, and I'm like, okay, that's not really that's not really a solution. That's just good wishes. So it's almost. I saw this movie. It's kind of like a Twilight Zone episode, kind of like a cautionary tale, like Futurama made fun of Twilight Zone episodes by saying like, in the end, it was man, that was behind it, and it was the same thing with this. So, like it turned them around like, no, we're the bad guys. We're the one that are causing all this harm. Um, I did like I thought the theme was pretty structured well in that regards. You see that Harp in the beginning, although he's making this decision that's very logical in his mind, you could tell by his mannerisms that he sort of didn't care. He was very detached from everything. He was like chewing gum and just hanging out
Uh,
and
Gummy bears,
gummy bears.
which is his nickname. His girlfriend's or fiance's nickname for him.
Hmm. And he just doesn't care. And then when he's thrown in, he comes across that same type of situation. Like, all right, how much lives are worth, so that we finally could get peace for many other people, and that was intriguing. It was a very interesting, uh, like idea to kind of look into and explore, but again, just like most Twilight Zone episodes, they kind of bring that up, and they see a resolution where we in a sense lose, at least ethically and morally, and we kind of have left pondering, like, all right, what could we've done to stop this, to fix this ourselves. So that's my. Besides that, uh, Anthony Mackie, great. He's so great in this movie. He's such, like, I don't think I like he's I think he's underestimated. I don't know if that's the right word. Like I think we don't think of him as a great actor. He's such a great actor. Everything he's done, he's always put 100% in. From 8 Mile to Captain America, to the Alter Carbon series. Like, he's just fantastic in it. And every time he's in a role, I just forget that he's Anthony Mackie. He's this character. So I think, to me, that's the best part of him. His acting is excellent. Action's very good. Um, and I get that's pretty much it in a nutshell. All the other sub actors in the wall, I thought they did a great job. I didn't find anyone's acting faulty.
Yeah. I think you are giving this movie way too much credit for depth than it deserves. Um, and this is going to be, people are going to hate me for this, and feel free, send me all sorts of hate mail, whatever you want. This is, aside from 8 Mile and his MCU work, I'm getting to the point where I don't think Mackie is really very good. Or let me put it this way, let me try to stave off the hate mail. I think Mackie's um, ability as an actor is almost completely dependent upon the quality of his director. Because I thought he was wooden at best in Altered Carbon. And I thought he was all over the place in this. I didn't know whether he was trying to portray a sentient android with human feelings, or a person that was, sort of in the skin of an android, or an android that was literally just doing an excellent job of pretending to be an emotional being. Because he did all of those throughout the course of the movie, and I just, by the time the movie was done, I was kind of like, okay, So please give Anthony Mackie good directors all the time. So let me put it that way. Maybe stave off some of the death threats. You mentioned at the end where the sort of message or theme of the movie, or at least Leo's, the android, Anthony Mackie's motivation for stealing the nuclear codes and trying to launch a nuclear strike against the U.S. is that, well, I didn't get much of the idea that the United States needed to be knocked down specifically. I did get the idea, and he says this specifically, that taking the humans out of the equation, or the humanity out of the equation, was the direct quote, causes war to be more easy to do, because it's machine on machine, and he thinks that needs to stop. And his plan is, and he says this, when they realize it's a machine that did this, then then they won't make any more of my kind. Nobody knows he exists. Nobody knows he exists except Harp and the Colonel Eckhart, and then they eventually bring in this major, or I can't remember if it's another captain, Miller, to help them out. And one would assume whatever people in the DARPA group that built him, or wherever he came from, and that's it. They are the only people that know he exists. They make a huge point about that, and then show him showing off his superhuman abilities in front of dozens of insurgents. Sophia and many of the insurgents around there. Like it doesn't matter. But that's another point. So his plan is predicated upon the fact that people are going to hate that a machine did this, but nobody is ever going to know a machine did this. I mean, missiles come out of a former Russian base, former Soviet actual base, at the Ukrainian border with Russia, apparently inside the insurgent-held territory, attack cities in the U.S., and you don't think the U.S. government is just going to go, those insurgents, they took over the base. Now we really got to kill them. Why? He's supposedly smarter than Harp. Harp says that. He's smarter, he's faster, he's stronger. That is just idiotic. No, I laughed out loud when he said that. I was like, nobody knows you exist. How can you possibly get people to blame the machine? So, for me, unfortunately, all right, let me step back. The things that I liked, other than Mackie, and again, I think this is a director problem, I liked most of the other performances. I agree. I think the guy that played Eckhart, he's a great TV character actor. He's been in a whole bunch of stuff. He's really good. Idris is fantastic. He actually showed, like you pointed out, that sort of character growth from somebody who's pretty comfortable sitting behind a drone control and not feeling any emotions about what he's doing, to somebody who really cared about the people who were going to be potentially killed or injured in all of this. And the rest of the cast that actually had speaking roles were pretty good. Euron Greyjoy is in this. I'm going to call him that because I'm never going to pronounce his name right. So, and God, please, yes. Always that guy. Always give that guy roles. Forever. I thought that the fight scenes, the action was done really well. I disagreed with the way some of the stuff was ultimately, I disagreed with some of the things that happened in the action scenes. I thought they were a little pointless. A lot of the deaths of the civilians coming out of the bank, I thought was a little over the top. But the scene itself, the way it was set up, the fight between the Russian and the U.S. Gumps, all of that was done really well. The first combat scene where Harp makes his mistake was done really well. Even the fight scenes with Mackie as the sort of superhero or supervillain or whatever, superpowered thing, were handled surprisingly well. It didn't ever look like they were like speeding up, his movements or anything. And I think that had to do, if I go back and I think about it, with really surprisingly good editing cuts. So kudos to whoever the editor was. That was good stuff. Anything else about this that I really like? Basically, the idea that it's a big commercial for Boston Dynamics. The Atlas humanoid robot and Spot are all through this thing. It's not technically the Atlas, but it looks enough like it that you can get away with it. But then, the things that I didn't like, the dialogue was cringeworthy. People are saying things at times when they would never ever say it, either based on anything that any real person ever says or their own character development up to that point. some of it's really, the back and forth between Miller when his troops are pinned down at that first battle, and his upper commander or his immediate report, and then also the drone guy, Harp, reads really well. In a lot of cases, the military jargony sort of stuff, that dialogue they get, and that may be because of the video game background of the writer. But a lot of the other dialogue is just, the interaction, the first interaction between Harp and Leo is, you kind of go, all right, I get he's an android and probably doesn't speak like a real human, but then again, Harp is responding like not a real human. So it just made me cringe. The logic of the plot, as I've already mentioned, the big one is is Leo's motivation at the end doesn't make sense because nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows he even exists. But there are other things like, when Leo finally reveals to Harp that he'd been playing him all along, that the thing that he took out of his back wasn't a tracker that the Russians, how could the Russians possibly track something they don't know exists? Anyway, a tracker that the Russians would be able to use to find him, and it turns out it was a failsafe, like a mini explosive or something. We don't know what the failsafe actually was, but it was a failsafe of some sort. And that he'd been playing him all along so that he could get access, his own access, or get the codes for himself, the launch codes, which are in fact not codes. They're a tube that you stick into. Anyway, ancient Soviet technology for missiles, and it uses the kind of thing that they had at the end of Alien, where you put things in. So he tells him that, and then he pushes him out of the car to leave him stranded in the demilitarized zone, Harp stranded, and instead of killing him. At that point, he has admitted that he'd been playing him. We know he has made a heel turn. He is essentially a villain, although he's not quite as villainous. He thinks he has a more noble motivation, knowing that he's going to kill millions. We've been given nothing in his background to indicate that he would ever hesitate to kill somebody. So he doesn't kill him. The only reason to do that is so that the insurgents can pick him up, and Sophia goes through at least 5 minutes of exposition to explain what Leo is really up to, as opposed to having it come out by just having Harp question Leo. There's no reason for Leo to, deny it at that point. But anyway, just that kind of bad writing. So that bothered the heck out of me. And I apologize for this, folks. I am a science fiction detail. What's the word I want to use? Grump.
Oh, okay.
And this movie is set in, again, the near future. They call it 2036. So let's say it's 2036. So it's 15 years from now. In 15 years, we have gone from these Atlas and Spot robots in the most recent Boston Dynamics video, the one where they're dancing, which is hilarious. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. To these military-grade soldiers that have two things going for them. They have battery capacity that allows them to function in high-stress, high-demand environments for hours, which we're not even remotely close to. And two, they have an AI, and Leo says that they are an AI, and distinguishes their AI, he's sentient. They have an AI that is advanced enough that the U.S. military will allow it to make hostile versus friendly target recognition and kill humans that it designates as hostile autonomously. There are no drone pilots for these things. They are Allowed Sugary Sweets, welcome to the chat. Give you the fair warning. We're spoiling the absolute bejesus out of Outside the Wire, the new Netflix movie with Anthony Mackie. So stay with us and ask us questions and enjoy our commentary. If you've seen it or you don't mind spoilers, but otherwise you probably don't want to be here. So there you go. Goodbye. And in addition, somewhere, somehow, they've made something, they've made Captain Leo, which we never even find out how or what he is made of, how he's powered, how he functions. This is a comic book superhero body. There's no possible near future explanation that could get us. I mean, you could make an assumption that there's some sort of huge battery advance and AI advance in the next 15 years, and the Gumps could actually maybe happen. There's no way that anything like Captain Leo could happen in 15 years. Can't be done. And at the same time, number 2, here we go. All of the military, all of the U.S. soldiers are walking around in 2021 uniforms, armor, carrying M4A guns, standard issue U.S. military guns. They modify the stock on the back to make it look a little futuristic. That's it. And this, I had to look this up just to make sure I was clear on this. Harp is wearing the underpart of an armored vest. That is the vest that you attach the armor plates. That's why those big patches are actually industrial grade Velcro patches. You attach the armor plates over the vest onto those Velcro patches, and they're there so they can be removed in case they're damaged. You can put another one on. He's wearing the undervest, and in 75 to 80% of this movie, he is in an armored vest with no armor. Why? The production design in this, those problems bother the heck out of me. The U.S. Army's future soldier, well, actually, all soldier or warfighter development research center is based right here in Massachusetts in Natick. And going back 12 years, this is the future soldier system that it developed or set the groundwork for. Let's put it that way. Part of that includes, this is an exoskeleton that already exists. This is one of the test trials built by Lockheed Martin. The future system has at least in the legs and hips, an exoskeleton that allows you to carry more weight and move faster. That's in development. It's already being done. The gun system that you see here, as of last October, the 3 candidates that come from 3 different companies are in trials, and they're expected to be in field by 2022. Not the literally current standard M4As that the guys are using in this show or in this movie. All you got to do is put a little bit of, put a different kind of helmet on it, put a little bit of funky looking thing on the armor, give anything from a production design standpoint to make the warfighters, the soldiers, look even close to as advanced as the other technology that's in this thing. And they do none of that. Up to the point of even allowing the 2 main characters to run around in an armored vest with no armor on it. That just, from a science fiction standpoint, that bothers the heck out of me. From, even a production design standpoint, particularly the vest, that bothers the heck out of me. Is there nobody who would look at this stuff when it was being set up and designed and costumes were being created and so on, and went, wait a minute. Now, maybe it's a budget thing, and you can't afford to buy the paintball armor that an awful lot of people do and spray paint different colors and put a couple of things on it and, oh, good, there you go. It's specialized armor. Come on, folks. For the number of troops that are shown in here, that's a couple of $1,000s worth of gear and, you know, a couple of $1,000s worth of some prop master's time spray painting and gluing stuff on. Anyway. So for all of those reasons, no. Those are many of the things that I particularly dislike about this. And I would let the production design stuff wash. If this was a gripping, engrossing, engaging story that was, you know, well plotted and the dialogue was really good and the resolution made sense and wasn't the most illogical thing I've seen in a while, I'd let it slide. But it's not. It's just bad. So much of this is so badly written. It just, as you can tell, I was not a fan.
Well, I can understand where you're coming from with this because yeah, you're right. It's a lot of things that if you start thinking about the plot of it, sort of doesn't make any sense. Like, why is he a captain? Who made the decision? Why? How did that come to be? Why wouldn't it make an android? Who decided this? There's little things like that. Like, it, I don't know. It to me like from beginning to end, there was things like, all right, this isn't story wise doesn't make any sense unless, and this is why I went back with the Twilight Zone comparison, because some Twilight Zone episodes, not a lot of them, but some of them, when they have a point to make, they'll make a story around it, and a lot of times, if you think about the story in itself, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you look at it from like what the point is about, like, oh, okay, I see what they're going with here. So that's to me how I see, like, if I was to pick what is the general theme, like what's the one point that the author wants or the movie wants to give out is like, all right, drones are bad. Drone weaponry is bad. And you saw that from the beginning of the movie all the way to the end. The idea that, like, you kind of hit in the head earlier, where the idea is that we having machines fight the war for us makes us less human, in a sense. You know, detaches us from the suffering that people are being from the suffering that other people or the regular population is being suffered because we're not involved. Um, so that's yeah, no, I agree with you with that. The only thing if there's anything I disagree with, it's just the acting of Anthony Mackie. Although one thing I will say though, I know you were blaming on director. He was producing this, so he must have known how, must have seen how I, you know, I if his acting is bad in this, he does have some part to play in that.
That's true. That's true. He is the producer. This is his gig. And maybe that is one of the things where, you know, he has too many hats.
Mm.
You know, he's
That's
not
too.
like a Clint Eastwood who can be both an actor and director. Um, uh, but so let's move into theme and tone and so on, because that your statement about this being sort of a Twilight Zone episode, and the overall theme of it being the, you know, dehumanization of combat leads to, you know, more combat. And I think you're right. I think that is the theme, you know, and it's a popular theme because, you know, we look at, you know, drone strikes that where they make mistakes, and, you know, one of the most famous ones, you know, in Yemen, you know, a wedding party gets killed. Well, in that case, it may not have been a mistake. It may have been a mistake to, you know, target the person who they were targeting at the wedding party as opposed to waiting for them to leave. But, you know, if that's the case, if that's the message, if that's the theme for this this show, it's understandably a very popular theme. It's also completely and utterly wrong based on statistics. The amount of collateral civilian damage has gone down as a result of the mechanization of war since the beginning of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. You know, if you look at the number of civilian casualties in any of the, you know, Gulf conflicts, because of the use of more targeted strikes, laser guided, F-117 fighter bomber, drops, B-1 bomber drops using laser guided munitions. Special forces are sitting up on a hill and pointing at thing with an infrared laser so nobody can see it. And other, and the use of drones. Drones are a super effective targeted weapon system, which means that we no longer have to to win any war or to engage in any war, drop mustard gas on German villages, firebomb Dresden, literally drop incendiary bombs so that deliberately the entire city burns to the ground, which we did. Carpet bombing Tokyo, carpet bombing Hanoi, and of course the big ones, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the atomic bombs. The use of specifically or attacks designed specifically to kill civilians has almost completely stopped in the U.S. military canon because of technology, because of the fact that basically you don't have to anymore. If you can literally put a Hellfire missile in a window of a building, not just the building, in a window of a building, you don't need to do that anymore. And in fact, a lot of the cases of the collateral damage that is occurring is because of U.S. weapons sold to and being utilized by other people like the Saudis. Yemen is getting, and the people in Yemen, particularly the what are considered the rebel side, are getting absolutely destroyed. Civilians are, because of the Saudis using weapon systems that we're selling to them that could be used in a much more targeted way, and they just don't care. So the point or the message, the theme of this is that further mechanization of war or removing the human element from war makes war dehumanized, therefore easier to do. Well, yes, but that's not necessarily the thing that it doesn't necessarily lead to the bad result that this movie wants you to believe. Because the use of weapon systems to attack civilians, at least by the United States, has dropped precipitously because of mechanization. When it does happen, the outcry in the United States is just huge. We never would have had the kind of reaction to, say, a wedding party being attacked in Yemen accidentally. And we didn't have that kind of reaction here in the United States when it was all over the newspapers and the radio at the time that the U.S. firebombed Dresden. So I get the idea that it's a Twilight Zone-esque or a Black Mirror-esque. I'd go more Black Mirror-esque story, because as you point out, you're right that the resolution isn't a resolution at all. It's sort of kicking the can down the road, maybe a little bit, if that. So I get that that's the case, but in this case, the message that they're presenting is inaccurate. Populist. It's very popular to be anti-mechanized military. Captain Leo says something that should have been the core of this movie right from the get-go. At one point, when he's talking about being able to override his programming, so he is a sentient being, he has the ability to think for himself and can make decisions for himself, but there have to be certain conditions because he has programming inside him that prevents him from doing so unless these conditions are met. Which, again, he tricks Harp into helping him eliminate that. So there's your motivation for your character and almost everything he does. He's a slave. He's a sentient, intelligent being who is not allowed to do the things he thinks that needs to be done. He's a slave. And having a black actor portray a character who believes he is a slave because he has his own mind but can't use it whenever he wants to, that's your movie right there. They missed it completely. 100%. It's a toss-off line, and they just, meh, all right.
Wasn't thought through enough.
It wasn't. They wrote an exciting action video game that doesn't require logical character motivation.
Yeah, it felt like there are some episodes of the Twilight Zone, some episodes of Black Mirror where it's you could tell they're not the best written episodes because you could tell from the beginning of the episode, what the point is about. And once you know what the point is, your mind kind of fills in the gaps of like, okay, I already know where this story's gonna go.
Yep.
And it was like that with this movie too. It was like, okay, this cool action scene and everything, but I think I kind of know a little bit where this is gonna go, how it's gonna end, and when it did, I was like, oof, okay, all right, I see what this movie is.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah. I mean, if this was a playable video game, I would absolutely, hold my nose at the, the science fiction problems and so on and go, hey, sign me up, and that kind of is, when you think about it, Anthony Mackie is essentially, Captain Leo is essentially the guy in the Crisis nanosuit in Crisis. He's got essentially the same abilities. He can be, camouflage, skin, resistant to almost all kind of projectile attacks, moves super fast, super strong. This is Crisis, but they probably don't have. Even though he wrote the games, he probably doesn't have access to the IP, so it's a different name. So I think we covered message and theme. I don't know if there's an overriding tone to this. I couldn't identify one. Could you find anything, tonally, does this hold together in a consistent tonal way to you?
The fact that the main Harp's character only thinks about his girlfriend and I mean his fiance and wanted to go home and everything does sort of tie into what he felt in the beginning. He just didn't want to do any of this. He just wants to do what he has to do and go marry his girl and live that American dream. That's what it felt like to me. In that sense, I guess, yeah. It I don't know. It's again. I felt like the points of the movie was so much in your face and it's so prominent that the story suffered because of that. Like it had to be made. This point had to be made, even if the story didn't make any sense.
I thought that as I was watching it, and I thank you for saying it. That so much of this movie exists to make the plot happen, to make the end happen, not because it would exist because characters would do what they do. Like pushing Harp out of the car. It exists so that we can get the exposition dump from Sophia so that we now know what Leo's real goals and motivations are, or at least to them.
Certain characters' logical choices didn't happen because the point had to be made.
Yeah. Which is kind of bad because the setup at the very beginning where Harp makes his decision to use his Hellfire missile in his drone is actually, it's a pretty good initial statement about Harp's logic and emotional state and what he thinks of the chain of command and what he thinks of doing things. That sets up really well a character whose motivation then should be driven from what we know about his character. And then it doesn't. Or it goes in and out. They touch on it again when Harp actually finally has to kill with a weapon in his own hands another human being. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, they're getting back to it. No, they're not. They are for that 30 seconds and then it's gone. Now, so yeah, I don't know that it has a tone other than this idea that humanity is something to be cherished, whether it's your love for your fiance, your desire for home, or the humanity of looking at the horrible conditions of war and being shocked by them. And I just the one of the problems with that is that it accelerates the, again, incorrect assumption that people who play at war are more likely to be violent. So it basically is, video games make killers, the movie. That's, for people who write video games, come on. That's the message, the tone you want to put out for this thing?
And again, it really bothers me that at the end there was no like real solution to the problems. All these things exist, and again, the best answer was like, oh, we'll try to do better. And to me, it's like, oh, that's I don't feel good about that. There's nothing like, all right, I'm going to work from within and do something, or I'm going to try this. There was nothing. There was nothing at all. So it kind of leaves you like, all right, I guess we're screwed.
The voiceover as Harp is leaving, where it sort of jumps forward to Eckhart telling him, you did good, you're going home, blah blah, so completely out of place in everything leading up to that in the movie. It's like, wait a minute, we are assuming that he did good because he stopped the United States from getting nuked. Okay, sure. But he destroyed somebody, and I'll give him that. And again, this is Idris, the actor, portraying his reluctance at killing another sentient being. Leo at the end, and it's like, yeah, okay, that again, they're starting to get into that area again, and then nope, he leaves. And it's like, yeah, good job, soldier. Yeah. I was expecting a Team America World Police high five. Yeah, USA. It was just so out of place for what had just happened. The emotional moment between Leo and Harp. So anyway, so ultimately for me, this is a void. I would say don't waste your time with this unless you're an Anthony Mackie completionist. What about you?
I would give this movie maybe like a C plus. It's something that, yeah, I would show to friends like, hey, but with the idea that afterwards we'll talk about it and like, what did you think about some of the issues that were brought there, and we'll just discuss it and debate it afterwards. The action was good, and again, the acting was good. But would I watch this again? No.
Yeah.
Unless I was watching with someone that hadn't seen it before. But no, there are much better things out there right now that I will rewatch again than this.
Yeah, if I was doing that, if I was watching this with somebody, I would have to be wearing a COVID mask so they couldn't see me laughing my ass off, and I'm trying to hold it in. Yeah, so that's it, folks. That's our show. You're gonna do what you're gonna do, and if you like military, I've got friends on Facebook who, when I announced that this was our topic, they were like, "Yeah, I like that movie." Like, okay, if you like military movies, if you like the robots and military and combat and so on, and you don't care about plot or meaning or anything like that, or logical story or so on, go watch it. You'll probably have fun like these friends did. I just I like good movies. So next week, WandaVision. The final episode, in theory, assuming the secret episode 10 plot thing or whatever doesn't really happen, and so far they seem to be really backpedaling on secrets about to happen. That's going to be our topic next week, WandaVision. Join us then, 8 o'clock Thursday. I'm sure you're going to love it. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm trying to convince Manny, who would normally be working that night, to call in sick. Probably not going to happen, but we'll have a big team anyway. We'll have a good roster here. And Tuesday, of course, always Nerd Week Live. Already we're dumping a bunch of, this last one was insane. There's so much news between, Disney Plus, TCA announcements, and all the other stuff that happened. And we're already getting some pretty big news dropping, for next Tuesday. So Tuesday, 8 o'clock, all these same social medias. Please be there.
Hmm.
And Manny, if you would give us a goodbye.
Before I goodbye, Patreon, Teespring, please support us. We have products you can purchase below, or if you want to give out of your heart, Patreon, or even through our here on YouTube, I think you could donate or something like that.
That's true. We
Um,
do have you can become a member, and you can also donate. And during our a live show we did a while ago, we actually got our first donation. So thank you for those two people who donated to us during that live stream. We're always willing to take donations. Thank you. And that's our Patreon, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. It's up on your screen right now. If you want to help us out, uh, good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, cons will happen again this year.
hmm.
You know, assuming, of course, Texas doesn't put us all back into, anyway. Um, but while we're waiting for that and hoping you will donate or help us out on Patreon so we can get back to cons and get more content, still, most people haven't been vaccinated, folks, and we still don't know how the vaccine affects transmission. We know how it keeps you safe. We don't know how it affects transmission. Wash your hands, wear your mask, keep 6 feet apart, and we'll see you sometime next week. Hopefully next Thursday. WandaVision.
All right.
Gonna try to get some sleep tonight so I can actually get up early and watch it. So for Rodney Brown
And Manny.
and Manny, thank you all. Good night. Stay safe, stay warm, and stay healthy. Bye bye.
Take care.